Presented by Energizer, still going. That's what we like to say, and is the long-lasting power of Energizer. To my right, the matron of mathematics, Cynthia Frelund. To my left, old double D, diva, Dan Hanzu, showing up late, sitting in that chair,
Such a
getting
diva.
ready.
I'm here.
Ready
Such
to
a diva.
defend his power rankings posted following those Week 4 games. Of course,
And my reputation.
Included, you do have your reputation. Would you like to defend yourself?
No.
No? Okay, great. So we move on. Let's get started, Dan. Your 1 through 8, the top of the pops. Patriots Chiefs seems like that is going to be static for the foreseeable future after the Pats endured that dominant D in Buffalo, and the Chiefs, of course, just cut open the chest, ripped the heart out, threw it on the ground, and drove over it in a foreign vehicle as they exited the fine city of Detroit. But let's get started at
It was a Honda.
I remember back in the day when you used to roll to Detroit, and they'd be like, "Hey, listen, if you drive in like a Honda, don't you dare go into Detroit."
I'm a GM baby.
You know well.
I'm a GM baby.
Nowadays,
100%.
Totally fine.
And now I drive
whatever
an
you
Audi.
want.
Let's keep
Number
talking
3.
about this.
Let's start with the Saints
Yes.
because that is the highest-ranked NFC team you have, which would suggest, well, you think they're the best in the conference.
I just think the last 2 weeks at Seattle and then Sunday night at home against a very good Dallas Cowboys team really showed you a lot about this team, the Saints, the depth of the team, how well coached they are, and the reminder that come January, they need Drew Brees. But right now, they need a game manager, and that's what Teddy Bridgewater has been. I just was so impressed by them on Sunday night.
Now, Cynthia, it was a couple weeks ago when I maybe reacted. I was taken aback by your keeping the Saints in the top 5 most likely to make or win the Super Bowl. You pointed out it was a long-term projection. Clearly, you've been vindicated by these past couple weeks. Does this follow what your model was telling you, that this was a team that could dominate on defense?
The defense is dominating. Special teams is helping out, which is a huge driver. And realistically, they got through a really tough, these 2 games, Seattle and then hosting the Cowboys, were 2 of the toughest games that they project to be without Drew Brees. So the ability of them to control the clock, time of possession has been huge for them. The ability to get great starts, right? The line of scrimmage that they're starting at is all favorable, and it's all working together to manage their way to a win. And those 2 wins were the hardest 2 that they face.
And I would assume when I ask this question, the PAPs, as I like to refer to them, the predictive analytics people will say, "You idiot." Such an obvious question. Your model, does it in fact take into consideration the division and the performance of the Bucs, the Panthers, and the Falcons when it's laying out Super Bowl paths?
100%, because in order to make it to the Super Bowl, you first have to get to the playoffs. So in order to get to the playoffs, this division plays each other towards the end. Starting week 10, the Saints have 5 divisional games. Other than the Bucs this week, they don't have another one until Drew Brees projects to be back.
Let's go to number 5, Dan, and the Bears. After a divisional victory over the Vikings, they lose their quarterback, but the defense shows no mercy to its opponents. Putting the Bears at 5 suggests they're another one of the top teams that very well, according to your rankings, could find themselves in the NFC Championship game.
Absolutely. That was an unbelievable show by the defense, which played like a better version of even last year's unit. And what you have, again, is a similar situation in New Orleans. Mitch Trubisky goes out of this game with a left shoulder injury, and we're going to see how much time he misses. We don't know for sure yet. But Chase Daniel, not a world beater, but you don't need him when you have a defense that is as dominant. They made Kirk Cousins look like a junior high quarterback. It had Adam Thielen talking trash after the game. The Vikings were in a total haze, and you would think that that would be a close matchup between 2 division rivals. But the Bears just looked like a superior team, and also one of the most impressive wins of the week by anyone.
And Cynthia, I would assume if your model didn't flinch when Drew Brees went down, it might have upgraded the Bears when Mitch Trubisky went out.
You know, it wasn't him being out that's a potential problem, but Roquan Smith on defense, that my model did not love. So obviously you have to take into account that we don't know exactly what's going on there. He's healthy, not playing for right now, and they do go across the pond. Game is in London against the Raiders. This game it didn't really impact, but going forward, if he were to miss extended time, the Roquan Smith injury, that's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a way when it comes to these things. Again, I'm speaking to the PAPs. The predictive analytics. Is there like a power-up button that you can hit for Khalil Mack for a game against the Raiders? Can you just kind of like put some sort of emotional multiplier in there that will account for the damage this individual is going to do to Colton Miller, Trent Brown, and that team?
There's definitely some like left, right, up, down, up, down, something crazy like that. Yeah. I can't model that
Okay.
absolutely.
It was
Yet.
to some degree a rhetorical question.
Right.
Just acknowledging that Khalil Mack is going to wreck the Raiders.
I would say
in
14
London.
to 19 sacks.
And you're going to be there to see it.
Absolutely.
I believe.
Well, not that game. But
not that game.
I'll be watching it on television.
Is that right?
Yes.
What a surprise.
Yes.
All right. You have a 2-2 team in your top 8. The Eagles at number 6. Why?
Great team. And there are teams behind the Eagles, the 49ers, who we'll get to, fans that are upset. But I just look at the Eagles as a team, yes, 2-2, but you have to factor in what they've been dealing with in terms of injuries that cost them some games they could have won with better execution or better personnel in the game. Well, they're going to continue and get healthier. And while they're getting healthier, on a short week, they go to Lambeau and beat a 3-0 Packers team. I was just 3-0. Sorry, money. I was so.
It's your preference, man. It's fine.
No, I just thought that was the game that reminded you that the ceiling of the Eagles is just about as high as anyone in the NFC. And just because they're beat up right now does not mean that they are not a team that can go to the Super Bowl. I think they're at that level.
I thought you were like giving us a little preview of who you think might be joining their team because they have no corners. And there's one that could be out there. I don't know. Maybe that happens.
Well, Trader Howie is likely going to find somebody. I mean, he always does. He enjoys making trades midseason. Does not bother him whatsoever. I guess my one issue with it is, you think about Devontae Adams and how he and Aaron Rodgers had kind of found that rhythm, obviously, in the first half, and it seemed like it was coming back in the second half. If he doesn't go down and the Eagles slip to 1-3, even though they play a great game in Green Bay, it just seems like that number would probably somewhere in the late teens or the high 20s at 1-3. So 6 just feels a little bit high right now.
That's fair, but if you look at it that way, you could also look at their 2 losses, which if their wide receivers hold on to the ball, you could also see them as undefeated right now. Yes, they're playing very close games, and maybe a 2-2 team. Maybe 6 is too high. I just don't think they are. I think they're worthy to be in this position right now.
Hey, that's why power rankings are subjective, and you need to attack Dan at any potential crossroads. We get the power to the people and the folks that will take some issue with you. Rank the 49ers at 7. Do you really, and he put really in there, Daniel Grimes did, not see the magic happening? Or are you still still in denial?
I guess I don't see the magic happening yet. I'm a little more bummed with the schedule makers not giving us a Week 4 game to watch. I want to see more of the Niners because they are an intriguing team. We know the defense is for real. Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit up and down still. I want to see more of it. We got a Monday night game with the Browns. That will tell us a lot about San Francisco.
They haven't played a division game yet either.
So, no, but they've also played 2 on the road in the Eastern time zone, no less. So not easy, I think, right? Yeah, 2 in Eastern time zone. Beat a very good, I think, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say beat a what I think is developing into a good Buccaneers team on the road in the Eastern time zone. And we'll see. I mean, they get these divisional games coming up. You mentioned it. So.
And Daniel Grimes could get a little bit upset, but if early October, if someone would have said, hey, the Niners are number 7 at the NFL.com power rankings, you're feeling good right now.
No question. All right, let's get one more
Fair.
in here from the people. New England, KC, how they develop and what kind of team Cleveland is going to become Week 10, especially in that division after knocking off the Ravens.
Yeah, I feel like New England and Kansas City are quite developed.
Yes.
They're fine. In
There's
fact,
separation.
Doesn't it feel almost like the early 90s, mid-90s with the Niners and the Cowboys, where everyone knows these two teams are on a collision course at the AFC title game, and it very well could be the case that that's the Super Bowl winner, whoever wins that game. That's how confident I feel about those teams staying in the top 2 if no injuries hit.
Right.
The Browns, I think, are a fascinating team because their ceiling is higher than anyone else in the AFC. Outside of those 2 teams I just mentioned. And the current power rankings, I have Pats, Chiefs, and then 8 NFC teams because the AFC is kind of murky right now, but the Chiefs, the Browns, they're out there as a team that can make a real push.
To me, it's more of an indictment of the Ravens than it was maybe shine for the Browns. Beating up on the Dolphins and the Cardinals. It's like, okay, let's slow our roll on Lamar Jackson after a couple losses to the Chiefs and Browns. You feel a little bit better about maybe how you felt about that Ravens team going into the season and questioning whether or not they could actually do this with Lamar Jackson. You see it right there. To Buffalo. They play, especially the defense, inspired football, shut down Tom Brady, yet we didn't even speak of them. We'll do that next.
loaded the gun again. He swings it out to Howard at the 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Nobody on the other side but Jordan Howard, and he ran untouched into the end zone.
Doug Peterson, what a great play call that was.
All right, back on Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Still going. The Packers start off our second quadrant. They lose on Thursday night at home. The Eagles run right through them and end up, as you just mentioned, a reason why you put them all the way up at number 6. Dan, you have the Packers down 4 spots with their first loss of the season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Devontae Adams injury. That's obviously something to keep an eye on because it's a toe injury, and those things can linger, especially for an explosive athlete like Adams. And I wonder if Adams is limited or he's not unable to play if the other guys in that group, MVS as I call them, Geronimo Allison, if they can step up and fill that void. Otherwise, their offense is going to be hamstrung.
Yeah, and for that matter, how about Jimmy Graham? You know, I mean, he ends up getting a touchdown reception, but, man, that one-hander, I know he's not Odell Beckham, and we expect people to make one-handed catches because we get a ton of YouTube videos on the jugs machine, but it just seems like you got to be able to haul that in.
5 years ago,
you know,
and
we're talking about a different Packers situation, right?
Still a problem, I mean, in the red zone always, so it's just, you're right, 5 years ago, totally different situation. He was a wide receiver.
Right.
Now he's a red zone big target.
Right. And I would also point out, I'm still not quite sure what's going on with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. It seems like they're sort of doing this delicate dance with one another. Hey,
I feel the same way.
Don't insult me. I won't insult you, and we'll just keep moving forward.
But you know what? Aaron Rodgers has a limit to that.
He can't
he's
help
able
himself.
to hide. Yeah,
he cannot
and
help himself.
If they do go into a little slump here, it's going to become a story. I'm totally with you.
We are going to lean on the people to set up our next bit of discussion here, Dan. Somebody not happy with you. Can the Bills get some love for holding Brady to 6 points and his worst rating since 2006? And I appreciate this. I mean, come on. You give their defense love for holding Allen at the 4-yard line, but no love for our stout defense. And I would agree with that. I mean, the Patriots offense, and we said that going into this game, that there are issues on that offense. As dominant as the defense has been, this Pats offense has been limited.
Awesome defense. Buffalo has a great defense, and Tom Brady looked terrible on Sunday. So you give him a lot of credit. I have to be honest that Josh Allen looked terrible as well. And
that's an understatement.
3 interceptions. He lost the fumble in a big spotlight game. And we've talked about it, or at least I've talked about it, the first 3 weeks I felt brought a lot of progress for Allen. When you look from his rookie year, he was making plays and that he wasn't making as a rookie a lot. But I definitely saw the old Josh Allen come back, and I guess that spooked me. That spooked me enough to drop them.
He's a risk-taking quarterback, and whenever you do any predictive modeling with risk-taking quarterbacks, you have to value their backup a lot more highly. So Matt Barkley as a backup makes this team a lot more not as good as if it were.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, but the backup quarterback is a very important. We've seen it. We've had 40 different starting quarterbacks, the most since forever in the NFL this season. So the backup quarterback position, you have to factor in how strong is your backup and can they run and execute the same type of offense. They don't run the same style of offense, those two. So that's the difference.
To me, and when you look at number 11, you know, this is a wild card team. It's a very similar conversation that we're having as we are with the Bears and with the Saints. The defense is that good. And I think while, I don't know, you may be upset that they're at number 11, that's still a playoff team in a very muddied middle of the AFC to the back end of the playoff race. And I would say that's pretty complimentary. They're not going to win the division, so are they going to win one of the wild cards? And I think that ranking suggests, yes, they are.
Maybe if I had to self-critique, maybe I had them a little too high heading into this game. But really, in that 10 to 15 range, seems like a fair place for the Bills at this point.
I agree.
Let's go to, hey, they're in quadrant 2. And now we get to quadrant 3, teams 17 through 24.
1 sack, 1 takeaway by the Bears defense without Hicks and Roquan Smith. 1st and 10. 25-yard line under center. Sidestepping to the pocket. The throw hit from behind. Ball is out inside the 15-yard line. Piled up. Bears have taken it away. First snap of the second half as Kirk Cousins gets sacked on 1st down.
So here you see it, teams 17 through 24. And the Vikings, you see with that big slip in there down to number 19. And that brings us to Power Moves presented by Energizer as we look at the big movers and shakers this week. How about the Vikings down to number 19?
welcome to purgatory.
Yeah.
And you deserve it because you had a huge division matchup against the Packers, couldn't find a way to get that done, even though a nice comeback. And then you no-show against the Bears. And I don't want to take anything away from Chicago's defense, so maybe no-show is not fair. But they just weren't competitive on offense. And it's just so bizarre to me that a team with Kirk Cousins, who has always been a producer, maybe not a truly
Not
great
elite,
quarterback, but now you have Dalvin Cook, one of the best young running backs in football. You have Diggs and Thielen on the outside. There's no excuse for what the Vikings offense has devolved into.
I'll go Buccaneers. You only move them up 3 spots, but we spoke to it a minute ago with the Saints and how you feel about that division. I've seen enough. I mean, I feel like I have seen enough from what Bruce Arians is doing with Jameis Winston. That defense, Shaq Barrett, you mentioned it a minute ago. I think you mentioned it already, that this is it's not only is he leading the defensive MVP race, but it's not even close. I mean, the man has 9 sacks, an interception, 2 forced fumbles. He is an absolute wrecking machine on that defensive line. And really, when you think about kind of that first game and Jameis like, oh boy, is this really happening, the interceptions? He's settled down. I mean, Bruce Arians has done this at every one of his stops with a million different quarterbacks. I'm buying the Bucs. I mean, if you have that kind of power on an edge and you can create that kind of havoc with a quarterback that seems to have come around, I'd say I think that's one that you're going to see bump up a little bit, especially considering the competition.
I think they just beat each other up in the South, right? I think that the Bucs, they could cause some problems here against the Saints. They could all just beat each other up, and that's
I guess
kind
if
of.
you feel all right about the Falcons and the Panthers, and that's again, that's it. It's like, do we feel okay about the Panthers? Who do you have at 2-2?
At 2-2, I forgot which one.
Well, actually, no. Power moves is what I'm asking
Okay,
about.
good.
Who's your power move team?
Which one is my power move
Browns.
now? Okay, good. The Browns.
There we go.
This was an interesting one for me because now they're leading their division. They went up 7 spots with 1 win against the Ravens. Yes, it is worth more when you beat your divisional opponent, but I'm still very concerned about their O-line. I don't trust their O-line. They need to give Baker Mayfield the difference when he can execute the quick throws and when he has to scramble around and make things happen. He's under pressure. It's considerable, like 40 points different in passer rating. That is a problem going forward, but it is a big move up. It seems like a big one for 1 win, maybe.
I just think, like I said earlier, their ceiling is so high. And the Ravens, who have a lot of issues on defense right now, what we were able to see from the Browns, Baker Mayfield throwing for over 300 yards, but the guy that really jumped out to me was Chubb. I mean, the 88-yard touchdown run, he doesn't get touched, showing incredible burst. And then on his first touchdown, a 17-yard run, he runs through 3 Baltimore tacklers on his way to the goal line. He is a complete player. And you look at Odell Beckham Jr., who hasn't even really gotten heated up yet. He hasn't heated up yet. He had that 1 long touchdown against the Jets in week 2. But other than that, he's been quiet. He's going to get his eventually, or he's going to talk about it. I just think the Browns have, so much
Only problem with them
potential.
is penalties. The second, 41
Sloppy.
penalties,
offensive
second
line,
most.
and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
still. But I think it's what we spoke to, right? It's the division. Do you feel they look like the best team in the division right now? So that makes you feel pretty good about moving them up as much. When we return, Frelund's findings. That means the long view and what that Super Bowl picture looks like according to Cynthia and that fancy model of hers. Next. As we welcome back to Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Still going. Huge NFC West matchup on TNF this week. Rams take on the Seahawks in Seattle. You can catch that one Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network, Fox, and Prime Video. Just a quick reminder, if you are checking in right now, Dan Hanzu's subjective Power Rankings are right in front of you, 1 through 8. Well, it is.
No, it's accurate.
I mean,
I do not refute such a thing.
It's qualitative. It is not quantitative. Quantitative, though, is what this person here to my right does. They're Frelund's Power 5. So what do we got, Cynthia? Walk us through it.
All right, number 1, Patriots, number 2, Chiefs. We get it. You and I both agree, Saints. So remember, this is a longer-term view. This is like who has the best chance.
Who wins the Super Bowl?
Who wins the Super Bowl? You got to make it to the Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl. Eagles and Packers round out the top 5. And you know what? You made a great point earlier about how the AFC has 2 just right at the top and then like a lot of confusion. And then the NFC actually has like 7 teams that legitimately could make a run to the Super Bowl. Not just make the playoffs. 8 teams that could make it to the playoffs and like 7 Super Bowl contenders. It's kind of crazy on that one. For me, the thing that really differentiates everyone is going to be defense. So you saw the Packers defense significantly improve. The Eagles have questions on defense in terms of their secondary. And then, of course, the Saints defense is really carrying them right now in Drew Brees' absence.
I guess my one big question is, do you look at the performance against the Buccaneers as a red flag or as an anomaly for the Rams? Because I look at it more as an anomaly. It got away from them quick, and Jared Goff certainly did them no favors with all those turnovers. And if I feel that way, I'd probably slide the Rams ahead of the Packers, just kind of thinking about, you know what, I'm going to let that one, I'm going to give them a pass here.
Yeah, look, it's not about like giving them a pass or not. It's a long-term view. The chance to be a home playoff team went down, which is what slid them out of the Super Bowl contention, because the Rams have a much better chance of making the Super Bowl if they get the bye and then have home field advantage. Right. Whereas, by the way, every team has a better chance if they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs and taking one game off. Their chances to make it as the 1 or 2 seed went down from that loss. It's not necessarily
but not more than the Eagles, who are 2-2, and the Cowboys are 3-1.
Well,
right?
when you look at the back half of the Eagles' schedule, it's more it becomes more favorable for them than the Rams. So that's where that comes into play.
Very concerned with the Rams and their offensive line right now.
That's my model hates bad O-line play.
Rob Havestein got the clown suit put on him by Shaq Barrett at the end of that game, leading to Jared Goff's final turnover. They seem to be in a little bit of a funk, the Rams, but even despite that, they're in good shape right now. They're 3-1, and I think they're going to get it together.
Yeah. The one thing is I'm going to talk out of this side of my mouth now, because that's what I regularly do, is contradict myself after making points. Football is not kind to the old. Your drop is typically precipitous. It is not gradual. And when you think of Andrew Whitworth, who's probably been a Hall of Fame throughout his career.
He's my favorite left tackle.
You're talking about 2 holding penalties, a false start. He's got more holding penalties this season already than he did all of last year. You almost wonder, is that what we're watching? Is that, and if that's the case,
and look at the
that's not good.
Look at the defenses that they're facing coming up, especially the Seahawks are not kind to their. This is not going to. It's going to be a tough race for everyone.
All right, now you're still the star of this segment.
I'm very excited for this segment. I spent a lot of all of the brain power I had left.
Ranker is
Random
yours
ranker.
this week.
I saw you you reached out to the people even?
I did.
Yeah.
I needed help.
Well
this
done.
is not my wheelhouse. I do math. I'm not funny. I don't pretend to be funny. None of it.
So what are we doing?
Okay, so with the whole Gardner Minshew and Uncle Rico, who is one of the best movie nerds of all time, in the spirit of that, I was thinking that I could rank the top 5 movie nerds.
Okay. Cynthia's top 5 movie
top 5
nerds.
Movie
And because you're
This
a
is
nerd,
good.
you can say that.
It's super on brand.
Right.
Right. I'm like that nerd
Exactly
emoji with the
right.
glasses. I should have worn glasses for this. Whatever. I don't even need glasses. So obviously super bad. You got honorable mention Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill. And of course, Jonah Hill and Moneyball, that was a strong contender for me. But McLovin, so
Great
his name is
one.
Christopher Mintz, that, he's number 5. How do you do better than McLovin? His voice, the whole thing, he's perfect.
And nerd redemption at the end.
Yes. I revisited this movie just a couple of weeks ago. And
Still holds up.
When the ID comes out and they realize that he only went with McLovin,
Yes.
there's no first name.
That's
An all-time moment.
best part. I love it. Okay, at number 4, if you remember the movie She's All That, Rachel Lee Cook plays a character named Lainey Boggs, who Freddie Prinze Jr. creates. She's a huge nerd, and he like turns her into a really cool, like beautiful girl. She walks down the stairs. It's this whole thing. It's an awesome nerd moment, especially as a nerdy girl, right? Incredible. Got it. Number 3.
Wait. Slow down one second.
You like Rachel Lee Cook?
I do love Rachel Lee Cook, but Matt Money Smith with the music background, who was the band that had the big hit off that soundtrack?
Never saw the movie. You can give me the song, and I might be able to give you the band.
Kiss me.
Oh, that would be Sixpence None the Richer.
Oh,
there we
good
go.
job.
All right.
Wow.
That was good.
Wow,
Well,
amazing.
I'm not surprised.
Come on.
That's
Perfect.
great work.
Amazing. All right. Number 3, my favorite nerd girl, Emma Stone. Look, Superbad, she's in it, and that's where you kind of fall in love with her. But if you've never seen the movie House Bunny, she plays a character called Natalie. Do yourself a favor. It's a ridiculous movie. That is incredible.
Okay.
Just go watch it. Trust me
Matt
on
doesn't
this
watch
one.
movies.
Anything to add? I do.
Yeah,
I do.
you
These are
missed
just
these,
not in my
though.
wheelhouse. I've got a million nerds in my head,
She
but these
also
are none of them.
obviously
I'm sorry.
Spider-Man. She's in a bunch of other nerd
I'm going to revisit
movies.
House Bunny because
House Bunny,
you
you
were
have to
talking
see
it up
it.
before today's
Okay.
show pretty hard.
Number
All
2.
right. Number 2. Okay, his name is David Herman, but you know him as Michael Bolton from Office Space.
Yes.
One of
great.
my
Love
all-time
that
very
dude.
favorite movies of all time has to be included in this. I mean, him singing in the car is epic, especially because I travel along those roads, so I mean, I sometimes do that myself.
Great
And
call.
the one thing he didn't want to be known as was a nerd. He liked to
Too
listen to
bad.
hip hop, but he was. And
Which
his
makes
name
him
was
even more of a
Michael
nerd.
Bolton.
Hey,
Yes.
right, Michael Bolton. You
I had
celebrate
the name first.
entire.
Why am I changing it? Exactly. All right.
And number
one.
1 from my all-time favorite movie, the nerd I first fell in love with, Patrick Dempsey,
course.
Ronald Miller from Can't Buy Me Love.
Great
We need
pull.
all of the Cindy Mancini in our life. Ronald McDonald Miller, he went from like totally geek to like totally chic, and then back to totally geek. Best movie all time. Come at me. If you haven't seen it, you must.
I haven't seen that movie.
What?
Really?
Missed it.
I'm gonna walk
wow.
off the
That's,
set.
I missed that. But
By
I
the
know
way,
what
you know
you're
who was
talking
part of the cool posse?
Wait, who?
Gerardo.
Of course, Gerardo.
Yes, Gerardo
Yeah.
was one of the stars, which you probably don't know who Gerardo is either.
El
would
DeBarge,
imagine.
I know.
Rico Suave, the big pop
Oh, that
hit there.
guy.
There you go.
Yes.
That guy was in it. As well. All right, so those random rankers, top
was
5
good,
movie
Cynthia.
nerds. Well done,
Yeah.
Cynthia. When we return,
Thank you.
it is
Sweating that.
the back end, our bottom quadrant. So what do we make of the Steelers after a Monday night victory? We'll get into that next.
Mayfield with Chubb behind him. Toss sweep, near side. Here comes Chubb with a cutback. He's out to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Here he goes to the 50. Here goes Chubb. He's going to go. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Nick Chubb. He's got a hat trick. Wow, 88 yards by Chubb.
And that gave the Browns their second victory of the season. And man, do we have a whole lot of teams at 2-2 after 4 weeks, and a lot of very good teams at 2-2 after 4 weeks. Parity is king in the NFL. It's one of the reasons why we love this league and this sport so much. So we figured we would focus in on the 2-win team that we believe could make a run in the next, we'll say, month. In the second quarter of the year, Cynthia, which of those 2-2 teams jumps out at you?
I'm looking at the Ravens. For me, this one comes down to their division, especially with the Steelers having no Ben Roethlisberger. The Bengals did not look very good on Monday, haven't really looked good all season. This division feels pretty wide open. I know that the Browns are right now atop the division, and we did see the Ravens lose to the Browns at home. But remember, the Ravens, they're kind of figuring out like a new system, right? They've got a new defense. I'm not as worried about their offense as I am about their defense. That defensive front, a whole bunch of kind of younger players. They had a lot of changes. There is going to be some growing pains. That loss for me wasn't as horrible. I mean, they could have won it. It was strange, kind of. They made comebacks. The things that we were looking for have happened. It's also super rare that the team with the most passing touchdowns is also the one that has the best rushing average, the highest rushing average, and the most rushes per game. It's a really interesting thing that almost never happens. So they are more balanced than it seems.
Over 1,000 yards of offense scored against the Ravens defense.
That's what I'm saying. They got to figure out their defense.
Is wild. And I guess it is notable to me that Lamar Jackson looked like the new Patrick Mahomes the first 2 weeks. When the competition got better, he absolutely has come down to earth a little bit. Add those two things together, and I'd be a little bit nervous about Baltimore right now.
All right, 2-2 team you like.
I've talked about the Browns today, and I'm going to talk about them again because, like I said, they looked like a team on Sunday that was finally putting it together and maybe got past some of the jitters of the early season and all those expectations. And then I look at their schedule.
Yeah, I think this is a bad selection.
Coming up.
But
you know what?
I don't line against that front of the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Patriots defense.
At Niners, home Seahawks, at Pats. That is a real test. So I suppose my faith is in, I just think their roster, and the offensive line is an issue for the Browns, but it's an issue for a lot of teams, can go toe-to-toe with anyone. And I would not be surprised at all if they won, let's say, 2 of those 3 games. I just wouldn't be. I don't think there's enough. The Niners, the Seahawks, the Patriots at New England, that's going to be a tough one. But I absolutely think the Browns, I would not be stunned if they're 2-1 after that.
I think you're speaking to their defensive front. And, yes, the defensive front of the 49ers can give Baker Mayfield problems, but guess what? Browns can do the same to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Steve Wilks' defense has not gotten enough credit for what they've been able to do in the first 4 games. While the offense has been trying to figure it out, the defense has been solid all year.
It has been quite the redemption tour for the 2 head coaches fired, Todd Bowles and Steve Wilks, just getting back to coordinating defense and how good they've done at that. I'm going to go with the Jags. We spoke about the Jags last week. And again, it's defense. And I just look at that same formula that the Bears and the Saints are following, leading them to victories. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do the same thing because that front is nasty. The back end, I'm assuming Jalen Ramsey will be back this week. He's not injured. Whatever the case. And you look at the schedule. At Panthers, Kyle Allen's the quarterback. Versus the Saints, Teddy Bridgewater's the quarterback. At the Bengals, they're a tire fire. That's, to me, 2-1 at worst, maybe 3-0. And just defense looks to be setting the pace in the NFL this season. And I have full faith that the old Saxonville is back. And Josh Allen, man, you look at that. Just forget about the production. Watch those games. That guy is going to be a terror, I think, once he really gets settled into here.
Do they play the Bills? Is Josh Allen going to sack Josh Allen? Because I really want that to happen.
That would be awesome.
Very poetic.
There is a team that we left out at 2-2, and of course, when it comes from the big town, people are going to get upset. And this is from old Rojas here.
Trash.
Power ranking trash.
Damn.
Giants deserve to be ranked higher than 23. Somewhere between 15
higher.
to 20. They're not pro yet. I guess they're still in the amateur ranks, but they have made many new improvements. Speak to it.
Well,
Speak to it.
Okay, I gave the Giants a nice bump last week after the Bucs win. I think it moved up 6 or 7 spots. Then they trashed the Redskins, who stink.
They're terrible.
Got nothing going for them right now. So just to be honest, on a home game, beating the Redskins, who are just throwing quarterbacks in the mix that have no chance, there was no real bump for me to give out to the Giants, especially when you look at the teams that are ahead of them right now. I couldn't do it yet. But you know what I can do?
What can you do?
If the Vikings, who have their own issues right now, come into the Meadowlands and the Giants handle them,
Yeah, I'm with you.
you're in that
You're gonna
middle
get a little
tier.
bump?
So
Get a
check
little
back
bump.
next week about the trash.
Yeah.
Speaking of the trash,
stand by my picks.
let's get to the teams that Dan thinks are trash. 25 through 32 is the bottom. No surprise.
they're struggling.
Dolphins,
They're trash.
Redskins, Jets, Cardinals, Broncos, Bengals. Those are all
I like that the Jets got a
winless
bump up without
teams.
playing.
Hey,
You see, well, sometimes it's better not to play, especially when it's the Jets. But the Redskins were so bad against the Giants, and the quarterback situation with Washington, Dwayne Haskins clearly not ready for this. And now you might be starting Colt McCoy this week. We'll see how that plays out. There's not a lot of hope with some of these teams in the 0-4 range, and especially, I have the Broncos there. The Broncos lose 2 games at the gun on field goals at home, and now they lose Bradley Chubb to a torn ACL, which is a terrible setback for a guy that has superstar potential. Vic Fangio's, I feel bad for him.
Fangio.
you just wanted to get Fangio
I
in
did.
there. Cynthia, the Steelers, though, they get a win against, as we mentioned, a terrible Bengals team, but
Still a
again,
division win.
And this is a team that has a very good defensive front.
Very good defensive front, and now we started to see the secondary pick up as well. I mean, adding Minka Fitzpatrick was really helpful. I think Tyler Boyd was held to like 3 for 33. That's a really nice stop for him. Look at this guy.
Devin Bush is fantastic.
Devin Bush is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, he's adorable. Did you see the pictures of him as a child that they were putting up during the game?
Totally adorable.
Most exciting thing about the second half of that game. But ultimately, for me, they're starting to come together. And that defense, you talked about it. The defense is what kind of leading things in the NFL. That Steelers defense is, I understand why they remain at 26, but I think we start to see that defense pick up just a little bit more, and you got to bump them up.
I think of all the teams in there, that's the one. Ball control offensive. James Conner builds on what was this past performance, and it's just so hard. The Bengals, who knows what the heck they're doing. No adjustments in that game. Terrible game plan going in. That I think is going to be a team that very well could find itself at 32. Next week.
That could be possible.
I would not be
We're all
surprised.
about real versus feel here. And I feel that I was still a little bit annoyed for the Steelers defense not stepping up against the Niners and not being able to avoid that 0-3 start. So I need to see a little bit more. But certainly a great start. Andy Dalton was under attack.
How many turnovers did the Niners have in that game?
5.
Yeah, so I felt like the defense did their job. It's like, hey, you get 5 turnovers. Offense, help me out a
They
little
didn't
bit
get the
here.
stops in the fourth
Give me
quarter,
a
but
little
that's
bit of
fair.
something here.
That's
5
fair.
turnovers. People want to weigh in. Let's lean on their conversations. Here we go through
Too much power.
Twitter. Really moved the Chargers up 4 spots with a win over the Dolphins.
I hope the kid gets residuals for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's like 37 now, but that's fair. It's
not fair.
It's fair.
It's not fair. Look at what Phillip Rivers did in that game. The guy was
And you get
down
Melvin
Speak
Gordon
on
back?
it. You're
To
the
his
voice of the Chargers.
4th tight end.
Yeah.
He was down to his running back 1 and his running back 4. He's missing his left tackle. He had a wide receiver make his first ever career catch. He had a running back score his first ever career touchdown. That was a complete mash unit on offense. And what did Rivers do? He went out, completed
done.
90% of his passes, had a QB rating of 130, and won a game.
Yeah,
I mean,
the defense. Didn't Melvin Ingram go out as well? So.
Melvin Ingram was out with a hammy after the
He
first
also
quarter.
said, Rivers says at the game, I haven't played worth a hoot in Miami. He finally got a win there. And by the
Worth
way,
a
another
hoot.
great touchdown call that we
Dadgummit.
played on the Around the NFL podcast.
Did you edit that? I feel like you might
Did
have
not
edited
edit it,
You
didn't
did not
touch
edit
it.
DJ out.
And DJ, Daniel
All
Jeremiah,
right,
doesn't need
to
to be
the
in that
people,
broadcast.
to the Twitter again.
It's all
More
money.
commentary from
Good
Jake.
pictures, guys.
Lions have a better record than the Eagles and Chargers, and beat them head-to-head, yet they're ranked lower. Now that's a great point.
Jake,
Jake,
coming in with hot fire.
With all
Defend
your
yourself.
facts.
Defend yourself.
Can you bring that up again? I want to look at it again.
Defend yourself. Again, they have wrong way.
No,
Nope,
wrong way.
Now we're giving you a little preview
Sorry.
here. Here we go. Nope, next
No,
one, and
almost.
there it is. Oh, just when we had it. There it is.
There it is. There it is.
That's fair. I guess heading into last week, I wasn't ready to crown the Lions, despite the fact that they were quote unquote undefeated, and they had an excellent effort.
Can I defend you? You're doing a terrible job of defending yourself. I'm going to defend you.
Go ahead.
Aguilar catches a pass. The Lions lose. He was wide open and dropped a game-winning pass. The Chargers were the better team by far on the field that day.
Yes, they were.
Penalties ruined that game. So easy. I mean, I know your record
What
says
he said.
But again,
I don't know.
I would not freak out about that.
I don't know. I'm kind of with Jake.
All right. Well,
I'm kind of with Jake.
We'll get a tiebreaker next week. All right, next one. We got to preview this. Don't agree with Titans, but that's their fault. I won't argue. Okay, I think that tweet pretty much speaks for itself.
Yep, it sure
One
does.
more I think
Great
we have
tweet.
here. That's it. All right, so that's it. When we return, we'll get more constructive criticism is what we like to call it, of Dan Hanzus and his
More?
wife.
We just
32.
did that.
Why not? That's what we'll do. Back on Power Rankings presented by Energizer. Still going. Here we go. A compliment. Love that, Dan Hanzus. Power Rankings. Seahawks creeping up in the rankings again. That could come to an end if they
That's what
fall
happens when you
to
win.
the Rams on Thursday Night Football, which you'll see right here. All right, that was complimentary. Let's get to the ones that are
all right.
not. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
How
Bring
often
it.
do you
It's
dig
part of
into
the
your
gig.
timeline for these? Every day, every hour?
It's unavoidable.
Okay.
Anytime I look in, it's somebody attacking
I like
me.
that. Delusional Dan Hanzus, little
That's
alliteration.
pretty good. That's
Eagles
good.
above Niners. Niners 3-0. Only undefeated team in the NFC. Eagles don't even compare stats-wise.
All right, calm down with the
I like the worst
stats-wise.
power ranking ever. Did you notice the avatar, by the way?
That was our number one Niners fan.
Number one.
Number one.
Niners
Yeah,
fan.
I
Number
get it.
one.
I
You're gonna
totally
know.
understand if you're a Niners fan that's annoyed that they're not higher because there's only
They're
3
7.
undefeated teams
Whatever.
left. But you're number 7. Calm
Whatever.
down.
Easy. All right, another one. 2 things, okay? Usually when people say 2 things, I would say,
Cleanest.
how about 1? Vikings only falling 10 is crazy. They are terrible. Also, Dallas not dropping a spot after getting exposed as bums
Funny.
is crazy. This list sucks.
Whatever, Cletus.
Low-key
Usac.
bums is a great word, though, because he used
Yeah.
bums. It's funny.
Bums.
Bunch
No,
of
the
bums.
Vikings have dropped, I believe, about 15 spots in 2 weeks. I think it's an appropriate.
Precipitous fall.
And Dallas lost a hard-fought game on the road against one of the best teams in football. If you want me to kill them for that, you're looking at there's 7,000 power rankings on the internet. find somebody that destroyed Dallas for that loss.
Just because Jason Garrett cut off old Kellen Moore's headset and decided to start calling plays again does
like
not
that
mean you
theory.
ding him too much. They'll get that whole
Exactly.
communication thing right.
Garrett's
and they'll
gonna
be
Garrett.
fine next week. All right, here we go. From Rogelio.
Rogelio.
Duarte.
Opinions is fact.
Fazio.
How is it?
Fangio.
Oh, I like this. Here we go. This is a good soliloquy.
Okay.
How is it that NFL Network gets these remedial, self-proclaimed
Remedial.
gurus that have little to no knowledge of football and allow not
Oh,
them.
you idiot.
You put remedial in there,
You fool.
Rogelio, and you don't edit your
Proofread,
words to
fool.
speak on a matter in which they shouldn't be speaking on, just because they may have a communications degree. Ooh, and a shot at a communications
Do you have a
degree.
communications
I have a
degree?
journalism
No less.
degree.
Exactly.
Sir.
He's a journalist.
Is from the, I believe, the Department of Communications. Your journalism degree would be found there.
Whatever.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know the
Defend yourself
setup.
against Rogelio Duarte.
Rogelio. Whatever. Listen, I don't proclaim myself to be a guru or an expert. I am someone that works for football for a living. I watch every game, and off watching those games, I formulate opinions. You may not agree, but it doesn't mean that like you have somehow taken me down a peg. In fact, you've only inflamed me to come after your team next week. I'm going to look up your Twitter profile, find out who you
Yeah, I
root
wouldn't
for,
do that.
and ding ya. Rogelio.
Yes. I would have just said it. I would have just said pound sand. I mean, that's
Rogelio.
pound sand and hire an editor. Speaking of a communications
Then
degree, one of
them.
the things we learn is
Grow
lean
up.
on your editors. They're going to be your friends, not your enemies. Thank
don't
you
have a journalism degree, I don't
very
know.
much for watching. We'll be back next week. Be sure to keep the hate coming at Dan. We like going through his timeline too.
Journalism folded under
Entertainment.
communications.